عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نيابة عن المركز الوطني للتعليم الإلكتروني، نرحب بكل من انضم معنا في ندوة بناء المسارات التعليمية المعتمدة من خلال التعليم المتتابع. وأسعد أنا زيد بن علي الرقيب بتقديمها لكم من عاصمة المملكة العربية السعودية الرياض. نحيطكم علما بأن الترجمة الفورية متوفرة باللغة العربية لهذه الجلسة. الرجاء الضغط على أسفل الشاشة أيقونة الترجمة. Greetings from the city of Riyadh, capital of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I'm Zaid Rgib. On behalf of the National E-Learning Center, we welcome you all to this webinar on building credit pathways through stackable learning. It is with great pleasure that we welcome Dr. Anand Agarwal, founder of edX, professor at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Chief Open Education Officer at 2U, who will be the moderator for this session. We also welcome the distinguished panelists, Dr. Robert Brown, President of Boston University, Dr. Pradeep Khosla, President of the University of California, San Diego, Dr. Barbara Brittingham, President Emerita of the New England Commission of Higher Education, Dr. Sanjay Sharma. Sanjay Sharma, Vice President for Open Learning at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Dr. Peter Moore, Associate Provost for Curricular Innovation and Policy at Southern Methodist University and Associate Dean for General Education. We would like to thank these distinguished speakers for joining us today. And now I'll hand it over to the moderator, Dr. Agarwal.
Thank you very much, Zaid. Good afternoon, everybody. It is our incredible pleasure to join you all and have a conversation about upskilling and reskilling for the future of work, and on how to do that by building credit pathways through modular stackable learning. I have an incredibly, let me share my screen to start, and we can get going. Okay, yeah, can you confirm that you can see my screen, Zaid?
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect, thank you. So I'm going to start with a quick round of introductions of our panelists. Before we do that, I want to speak a few words about how exciting this panel is and what a great collaboration we have with the National E-Learning Center in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It's been an incredible honor for us to be working with NELC on FutureX and with the Ministry of Education in helping them achieve their learning vision. As one of the foundational content providers, we share in this desire to provide access to the best quality of education that exists, whether it is for upskilling and reskilling, or whether it is to become job ready or to become college ready, and to provide this access to everyone in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for their entire lifelong learning journey. This is truly a great moment in time, and we are just incredibly proud to be part of such an incredible, ambitious endeavor. In our panel, you will hear from our distinguished panelists why such ambitious national endeavors are so important, and why the responsibility of upskilling and reskilling and educating nations is such an incredible responsibility, not just for universities and professors, but also for governments and national institutions, where we as an international group of educators need to collaborate planet-wide in order to create a much better planet. With that, let me start with slightly more detailed introductions of our panelists. My name is Anand Agarwal. I'm the founder of edX, as well as MIT professor, and 2U's Chief Open Education Officer. I am joined in this panel by President Barbara Brittingham, President Emerita of the New England Council of Higher Education, The New England Council, the New England Commission of Higher Education is an association which accredits over 200 colleges and universities in the New England, Boston area, and 11 American-style universities abroad. And she served as president from 2006 to 2020. She has also served as a dean and professor at the University of Rhode Island. And she also served internationally in the region. She worked in the United Arab Emirates as founding dean of the College of Education at Zayed University. Barbara advises nations on university accreditation systems and education transformation, and is on the education quality boards of Ireland and Iceland. She has worked on education accreditation, education quality with the education ministries of 25 nations. It's just such a pleasure to have an incredibly distinguished educator and accreditor and quality assurance guru amongst us. Next, President Bob Brown from Boston University. He's a distinguished chemical engineer and educator, and has served as president of Boston University since 2005. Before that, he was provost and professor at MIT. Under his leadership, Boston University has strengthened its position as a leading private research university worldwide. President Brown is no stranger to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and among other engagements, he was a founding board member of CAPSARC, which is the King Abdullah Petroleum Studies and Research Center. President Pradeep Khosla, he became the chancellor and the chief executive officer of UC San Diego in 2012. And he leads a campus with more than 40,000 students, 7 undergraduate colleges, 6 academic divisions, 6 graduate and professional schools. Pradeep, President Khosla, I'm not sure how you keep it all together with such a large institution. Welcome to the panel. Peter Moore, Associate Provost for Curriculum Innovation and Policy at the Southern Methodist University. He's been Provost for Curricular Innovation and Policy at SMU since 2016. And in this position, he works to promote innovations and accreditation in curricular structure and content at the university. He also works with the University Curriculum Committee and Faculty Senate's academic policy committees, as well as faculty across the university to develop and transform curriculum and create new innovative credit pathways. So he'll be just an incredible panelist where I'm hoping you can ask him questions about, how does he go about creating credit pathways into a university and so on. He's a leader and he does this every day. Professor Sanjay Sharma, Vice President of Open Learning at MIT. Since 2012, Sanjay has served as MIT's Director of Digital Learning and the Dean of Digital Learning, and is currently Vice President of Open Learning. In these roles, he has led all of MIT's efforts in online learning, quality learning, research in learning. I credit him with the creation of the world's first modular stackable credit pathway credential, the Micromasters. And you have him here, the very person on this panel. He developed the MIT Integrated Learning Initiative. He founded the Abdul Latif Jameel World Education Lab, which has created an incredible worldwide group that seeks to transform learning and teaching and research in education throughout the world. He's a professor of mechanical engineering at MIT. And more closely, he has been on my board at edX since the founding of edX. So with that, let me dive into our panel and start the conversation going. So thank you once again for joining us, and thank you, National E-Learning Center, FutureX, and our friends at NELC for the incredible work that you do in the region and in the amazing collaboration that we have with you. Okay, so let me dive right into our discussion. Let me start with a very quick overview of edX. edX increases access and upskills at scale through modular credit pathways. A quick timeline of our credit modular pathway history. edX was founded in early 2012 by Harvard and MIT. In 2015, we pioneered for the very first time a MOOC, an online course offered on edX, counted for credit at a university. And here, this was in collaboration with the Arizona State University and Michael Crow, who's the president there. In 2016, MIT launched the world's first Micromasters program, an incredibly innovative educational offering, which is modular, has a credit pathway, and this had never been done before. And we'll hear more from Sanjay and President Brittingham on how MIT and the New England Council on Higher Education, the accrediting body, and edX went about creating such a credential. It had never happened before. In 2020, edX pioneered the Microbachelors programs, with many universities now offering Microbachelors, NYU, New York University, Arizona State University, Western Governors University, Southern New Hampshire University, and this offering continues to grow. In 2021, another major innovation happened where the Rochester Institute of Technology launched a universal credit pathway where Micromasters earners on edX would get a universal credit pathway through RIT. In late 2021, edX and 2U came together, and today we are 2U edX. And my hope is that the next time we do this panel, we will have 2022 in there where we can discuss the incredible innovations that are to come in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and some of the incredible innovations that FutureX is doing in collaboration with international partners like edX. edX is a global platform. We have over 44 million learners from every single country in the world, 230 institutional partners, including 38 of the top 50 universities in the world. We have over 4,000 digital programs, and edX and 2U believe in the power of human education to create a better planet, to unlock human potential, and to address society's critical needs. And whether it's upskilling and reskilling, whether it is the skills gap, whether it's college readiness, all of these things are, education is the fount of the solution that can solve all of these problems. Here are some of the universities that and corporates that edX and 2U partner with. As you can see, some of the top universities in the world. You see representation here on the panel from Boston University, SMU, UC San Diego, MIT, and they were partnered with the number of great universities of the world: Harvard, Cambridge, Oxford. 38 of the world's top 50 universities are working with edX as partners, and top companies like Meta, Facebook, Amazon Web Services, IBM, Google, Microsoft, State Bank of India, one of the largest, probably the largest employer in the world, is a partner as well. As 2U and edX came together, the platform now offers a free-to-degree offering for learners all over the world. What's important to realize today is that gone are the days when you could learn from the ages of 18 to 22. Now, it's very clear that we have to become continuous lifelong learners for the future of work and become lifelong learners. And so therefore, it was important for us to create a pathway all the way from late high school, early college, going all the way through the professional careers. So on our platform, we start with open courses, individual courses that you can take and learn for free. If you pass the courses and you sign up for the certificate track, you can earn a certificate. We have professional certificate programs from places like Google and other top universities in the world. We have executive education. We'll talk about boot camps. Boot camps are incredibly important educational offerings where there is a high touch. And some of our results are showing that when learners complete these boot camps, which run from anywhere from around 20 to the 25 weeks, learners, when completing it, increase their income on average by $11,000 from before they completed the boot camp. So it's an incredibly amazing offering, which also involves career nurturing and engagement. We will talk more about micro bachelors and micromasters products that have credit pathways to complete master's degrees, whether online or on campus. We also offer undergraduate degrees, master's degrees, and going all the way to doctorate degrees, and really creating a complete plethora of learning opportunities on the platform. And it's not just the offerings, the impact has been very meaningful. 50% of learners who take edX courses tell us that it changed their lives. Learners who completed 2U-powered degrees from the 200 2U-powered degrees, 97% of them achieved a career outcome, a positive career outcome after graduating. And for learners who completed Micromasters, 89% of them achieved a career advancement within 3 months of completing the Micromasters, whether it was a pay raise, a promotion, or a new job. And I already mentioned that for boot camps, there's an $11,000 median income, annual income for alumni 1 year after graduating from Micromasters. So the outcomes are pretty incredible as well. In the rest of this panel, we are going to focus on the power of modular stackable learning. And the goal for modular stackable learning is to upskill and reskill for the future of work. It is also helpful for getting learners to become job ready. Learners from high school, for example, to become college ready. And we will address all of these points. And we have just an incredible set of luminaries on our panel who will discuss how they're leading their universities into these incredibly innovative areas. So with that, let me very quickly overview what modular stackable learning really means. So modular stackable learning, as the phrase implies, says that the learning is modular. The learning can be done in a short amount of time. Now, we all know about a degree, whether a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. A master's degree might take us 1 year or 2 years, and we spend the time in a campus, or we do it online. So that's a full degree. A modular credential is a piece of the degree. So a Micromasters, for example, was the world's first modular stackable credit pathway program. And you have none other than Professor Sanjay Sharma from MIT here. I credit him with the invention of this concept, and for MIT to offer the pioneering program on this on edX. So Micromasters program is a modular program. It's a sequence of skills-focused, career-relevant courses for deep learning in a specific field. And it is equivalent to roughly 25 to 50% of the credit for a degree. So the properties of the program are very important. It has to be short. It cannot be 1 year long. It has to be 25% to 50% of a degree, so modular. Second, it has to be career-focused, helping people either advance in their career or learn new skills in the program. It needs to have open admissions. There is no admissions process for Micromasters. Everybody is admitted, and they can, unlike degrees where there's an admissions process, everybody is invited and they can start learning for free in Micromasters programs. And the fourth important property of Micromasters is that there has to be a credit pathway to a degree. So as you can see in the chart, if you have a full degree, the Micromasters counts for credit towards full degrees. It can be a degree at the offering institution like MIT. We've also created a network of credit granting institutions. And I would be delighted to work with NELC and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Ministry of Education to create credit pathways into the universities and colleges in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as well. So in the full degree, students take a piece, this modular program, and then complete the rest of the degree credits from the university. In doing so, such a modular program like the Micromasters serves as an alternative pathway for degrees. So students can come into a degree by having completed a piece of the degree. It can also serve as a standalone credential for upskilling and career development. In fact, on edX, as we conduct surveys of learners, about 2/3 of the learners, 66% of the learners, say they want the standalone credential. They want a Micromasters. They don't have time for a full degree. It's very affordable. They want a Micromasters credential. 1/3 of them want to go on for a full degree, and they transfer the credits into university to complete a full degree. And today, over 6 million have enrolled in edX Micromasters worldwide. And we'll hear more from our panelists as we go into this conversation. So with that, I would like to start with our panelists, Professor Sanjay Sharma and Barbara Biddingham. And what I would like to do is to discuss why the Micromasters is important and how MIT, NECHE, and edX went about creating these credit pathways. And so let me start with Sanjay. So my first question for you, Sanjay, is, whenever we do something innovative in education, we need to ask ourselves the question, is it good for the learner? We should keep the learner front and center in our mind. So my question for you, Sanjay, is, in your mind, when you created this 6 years ago, why did you think the Micromasters was so important for learners? And after that, we'll talk about for MIT, but let's start with learners. Why did you think this is so important for learners?
Sanjay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Anand. First of all, I'm not sure we do that much innovative stuff in education, so I'll question that, but I'll just say that I think that the world is going through tremendous change with the gig economy. Employees have to change the way in which they educate themselves. I mean, our social contract in education is somewhat broken if you think about it. Go to college for 4 years and you're going to be ready for a job for the rest of your life. It's like saying go to the gym for 4 years and you'd never have to go to the gym again for the rest of your life.
Yes, Sanjay, I would love that.
So it became very clear to us that what we needed was a work-compatible education system. The other thing I'll say is that we understand what primary education is, we understand what secondary education is, tertiary or higher ed, but we don't have a sense of quaternary education. So what we decided was it was a good time for MIT to step into the fray and to define a new approach, which is modular stackable credentials, in which admissions was inverted. In other words, anyone could take it. If you're finished, we'd give you the certificate. And if you're finished, you prove that you got it. And it was also bite-sized. It wasn't a whole degree. A degree is, a year. For a working professional, it's very hard to take a year off, while they have family and so on, and go get a degree. And finally, it was online. MIT, of course, admits students if they finish the Micromasters and then they apply, and then for us, it was great as well. But really for the worker, the goal here was to make, I think the gig economy deserves a gig education system, and that's basically what this was.
Oh, I love that. I love that. This is such a tweetable sentence, Sanjay. A gig economy deserves gig education, which means that education must come in modular chunks. And, just imagine, if I'm, we have a Micromasters earner on edX, Andrew. He works at United Airlines. He's got a family of 2. He's 35. And the chances of him going to get a full master's degree on campus is 0. And so the master's program is just perfect for people like that can upskill and reskill while they are working and do it completely online flexibly in the space of about 6 months. So Sanjay, let me ask you, why was this important for MIT?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, for MIT, it was important for 2 reasons. First, because as the great mountaineer Mallory said, when they asked him, why did you climb Mount Everest? He said, because it's there. So for us, there was a challenge and we took it on. But we have a selfish interest as well, because our greatest asset is human talent. And the Micromasters turned out to be a dragnet, a way to capture, identify, and celebrate human talent and bring it to MIT. I'll also say that there was a triple bottom line to this. Of course, I really think it's good for the students. It was great for us because our Micromasters students are at least as good as the students we admit by regular means. Because just imagine the distillation column that we have. But there is a third beneficiary, which is companies, because now we find that people in companies or people in work, they don't have to lose their folks. They can upskill on a regular basis, go to the gym periodically. So it's great for us. It's great for the companies that work with us. And of course, it's great for the students.
Does the performance in the Micromasters, so let's say I'm a student, I do really well in the Micromasters, will it count towards admission into MIT?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. That's the distillation element. So if the MIT Micromasters are very difficult, frankly. And finishing the Micromasters is quite a feat. We have more than almost 2 million people enrolled in our Micromasters. And it takes, out of those 2 million, a hundred will be really exceptional. And that does count towards your admission. Then when you apply, you have to also do the rest of the admissions. You have to go through the entire process. But we have a much better sense of how good the student is. And I can assure you that our studies show that the Micromasters students are at least as good and often better than our regular admissions. Makes sense, because we have so much more, we know each other much better.
No, that is pretty incredible. But let me bring Barbara into this. When the Micromasters was being pioneered in 2016, this was a completely radically new concept, never been done before. Universities used to give degrees, bachelor's degrees and master's degrees and PhDs. There was no concept of a modular credential, let alone with masters in the name, like Micromasters. And so, Barbara, let me, as president of the New England Council on Higher Education, maybe I can start with having you talk very briefly about what is its role in terms of accrediting universities in the United States.
Thank you, and thank you for the introduction, and salam alaikum to the people who've joined us. It's good to be with everybody. The New England Commission of Higher Education traces its roots to 1885, when Charles Eliot, who was president of Harvard, and his colleagues wanted to make a list of what were the legitimate colleges and universities. And this was before automobiles and before a roadmap, so they had a big challenge, let alone they couldn't do it on Zoom. Now, the United States has an extraordinarily decentralized education system, and it wasn't until 1980 that we had a Department of Education in the federal government. But in 1965, the federal government started making financial aid available to students. The money went directly to students and not to institutions per se. The students had to attend accredited colleges or universities. NECHI is a membership organization. The members are accredited institutions, including Boston University and MIT. And the commission is, the word in the law is recognized by the federal government every 5 years. It's reviewed by certain standards to make sure it is, quote, a reliable authority as to the quality of education. It's a peer review system, which is very familiar, obviously, in higher education. And commissioners are elected by the membership, and they include presidents, academic officers, faculty, financial experts, and by federal law, 1 out of every 7 is a public member. So neither they nor their immediate family have a direct relationship with a college or university. They serve as volunteers, and they're the ones who make the decisions, including
Fantastic. That is great to hear, Barbara. So coming back to Micromasters and a modular credential. So Barbara, as the president of the body that serve to accredit universities and make sure create quality control and so on, when you heard about the Micromasters program, why did you think that something like this was important and innovative?
Well, for one thing, it was way ahead of its time. I mean, right now you can't pick up any article or go to any conference where people are talking about, what are the trends, what are the important developments when it's micro-credentials. But the Micromasters, in a way, following the MOOC, as you said earlier, really helped lead the way in this. And it's, I think, a very important development.
So, I remember the time when MIT was working on the Micromasters. And, I remember the conversation that President Brittingham, Professor Sharma, and myself, we sort of had the conversation about, I'm not sure if accrediting this credential is the right word, but approving this credential, so to speak. And so in your mind, MIT approached NECHE to say, look, this is what we want to do. What is the threshold at which a university has to come to you to do something like this? What has to be substantive about it? I mean, what's the threshold when a university needs to come to you to get approval for some innovation?
Yes, and so, thank you. Some of this is outlined, obviously, in the federal law and regulations, but you can imagine drawing a circle around what a university does and including all of that within the scope of its accreditation. If the institution wants to propose something that's outside that circle, by federal regulation, it must have the approval of the accreditor, as the term of art is a substantive change. So the commission staff worked with you. That was fun because this was obviously new and interesting. And we talked about, as you said earlier, making sure that it was approved by MIT. That was clearly important because MIT is a very fine institution, obviously. And if it was approved through the MIT process, that was a clear signal to the commission that this was well thought out, well organized. As you mentioned earlier, no more than half the credits. And importantly, it has a coherence to it. So if you took any master's degree and said to students, take half the credits for a master's degree, they wouldn't necessarily come out with something coherent. The Micromasters is a coherent credential. I should say at this point, I took a MOOC. I have a little bit of experience with how MIT does this, personal experience. I took a MOOC in 2013, The Challenges of Global Poverty, and it was taught by Abhijit Banerjee and Esther Duflo, who went on to win the Nobel Prize in Economics. So I know that I had wonderful instructors there. But this was, I think, a very important development, the Micromasters, and obviously with all the statistics, and not that you have reeled off, it's something that really caught on in a hurry.
Thank you, President Brittingham. From those conversations, I certainly remember your guidance that the Micromasters count for no more than 50% of the credit of a master's degree. And so we took that to heart. It went into becoming a enshrining property of the Micromasters, and also that the Micromasters be a coherent body where when you get the credential, you get a career-focused skill that you can use. It's not a random collection of objects that gives you nothing at the end. So your feedback and advice was very, very critical. And it's come a long way. As an example, Sanjay, do you want to talk about how Arizona State University launched a online master's and how MIT and ASU combine now to create a kind of a degree where students have to learn from two universities. And this was the very first time in the world that something like this happened. You want to talk to that, Sanjay?
Yeah, no, it's very exciting. I mean, once you create this Lego approach to a coherent Lego, I mean, to Barbara's point, Barbara, by the way, Barbara, that conversation with you was pivotal. So thank you for that. It was game-changing for us. It really gave us clarity on what the rules of engagement were. And we really sort of went to town with that. So thank you for that. Once you have Lego blocks, then what emerges is the ability to look for emergent, possibilities. So first of all, our Micromasters, which is online, of course, if you do really well, you apply to MIT, you can get into MIT and get a degree in half the time, right? The master's degree in half the time. But we now have more than 100 pathway universities around the world that will also admit students and give them credit. On all, with the exception of Antarctica, which we're still working on, all the other continents are covered. Now, the ASU masters, so ASU also has a really fantastic course department in supply chain management. And MIT had a Micromasters in supply chain management. And so they created an online degree, and you can take the Micromasters from MIT and then plug into the ASU masters. So that is one of the possibilities of really myriad possibilities that will emerge from in this new world of stackability. Because once you stack, you can create all sorts of combinations. The other thing I'll say, another little bit sort of different perspective is a lot of students don't want the in-person degree. They just want to stack their Micromasters. So we have many repeat customers who take the Micromasters in supply chain and then a Micromasters in manufacturing, because that's what they're looking for. And that may well be, sort of an escape velocity action from the orbit of traditional degrees, which leads to stackable credits, stackable credentials that you put on your LinkedIn page or wherever. And that is your new resume and your new transcript.
In fact, Sanjay, you're so right, where hybrid learning and hybrid work involves learning something about many different fields. And so being able to stack these Lego blocks in different ways will be important. When we talk about microbachelors, we'll talk about how learners can take many microbachelors in different fields and stack them up towards bachelor's degrees. And it's very impressive, Sanjay, that MIT's on-campus cohort, you admit 40 students into the full campus program, and then an additional 40 students to a total of 80 that come in purely from the Micromasters track. And then the ASU degree on edX, students have to complete the MIT Micromasters, and then they complete the ASU degree. And so it's sort of a Lego-like approach where multiple universities are working with each other in a plug-and-play manner. I would love to work with NELC and the colleges and universities in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to create more credit pathways into these Micromasters. Sanjay talked about over 100 universities from every single continent are now offering these credit pathways. We'd love to work on that going ahead. So Micromasters, after it started off with MIT, today we have 60 Micromasters from about 40 universities that offer Micromasters. And when we first launched Micromasters in 2016, as is the case with universities, and I've been a professor at MIT for, my goodness, 35 years. We are reluctant to change. We worry about change. And when you have a credential with masters in the name, Micromasters, there's a lot of concern. But once we launched the Micromasters from a few leading universities, BU being one of them, the whole world began to adopt them, and now it's completely accepted practice. So with that, President Brown, the BU has been innovating, Boston University has been innovating in online learning. And let me ask you sort of a very broad question. President Brown, why is online learning important for Boston University? You have a fantastic campus. You're one of the leading universities in the world, both from an education standpoint and research standpoint. Why did you think that online learning was important for BU as a university?
Well, thank you, Anand. It's really a pleasure to be here and with you today with our colleagues in the Kingdom. What I would say is that Boston University kind of prides itself on trying to look around the corner and think strategically about what the options we need in the future to maintain and enhance our position as a world-leading university. And we came to the conclusion back, I would say, in the 2012-2013 timeframe, that we could not do that, could not guarantee we would maintain that position without the ability to design and execute high-quality online programs as a core competency of the university. And so then we set about, as we joined edX, and you'll remember this in the early days, developing that competency inside the institution as a core competency that could be used across all of our 17 schools and colleges. The Micromasters was a very, very important innovation coming out of our Questrom School of Business, because it allowed us to create a credentialed program, and it was the first one like this in the core part of the university that was taught by our core, what I'd call residential faculty, our tenured track faculty in the institution. And executing that at quality, getting the faculty to understand the processes for doing that were core to all the progress we've made since then. And as you know, that led in August of 2020 for us launching our online MBA program, in which those credentials are stackable within that program. And that now is coming up on its second anniversary and is going very well.
I know the online MBA has, it's fully online, it's disruptively affordable. And already in the space of about 3 years since it was launched, the online MBA on edX has 1,700 learners enrolled, and BU, Boston University Custrom, graduated the first group of 300 students just about a couple of months ago. And so, President Brown, in your mind, did the learning that you achieve in the MicroMasters was sort of a first step. Do you think that if you had not innovated with the MicroMasters, taken the first step, that you could have climbed Mount Everest with the online MBA?
Frankly, no, because it was an incredibly important step that had to be done by a few pioneering faculty, and the MicroMasters allowed us to do that, which had much less engagement because of the scope of the program than the entire online MBA. And the MicroMasters created acknowledgement within the Questrom School of Business that these programs can be delivered at quality. And as you know, one of the challenges has been in terms of online education in residential research universities is this whole concept of whether or not you're having brand dilution by doing these programs. And moving your faculty past that point is a critical point to being successful at launching these programs with your core faculty.
No, that is incredible, Bob. You know, it started off with MOOCs and then MicroMasters and then the online MBA. And now BU is well on its way. And BU has announced a disruptively priced Masters in Public Health program as well. And so we're just so super excited to continue the collaboration. More broadly, President Brown, you've been looking at how governments and nations and so on work to upskill populations. Given the whole, this is a broader question. Given the need, the planet scale need to upskill for the future of work, and as people work and so on, I know you're clearly a big fan of lifelong learning, but what do you think the role, who do you think, who are the people that should be collaborating on this? If you count the learners themselves, the universities, governments, ministries of education, quasi-government organizations, in your mind, what is, who should be taking responsibility for upskilling nations for the future of work? A World Economic Forum study has shown that 50% of the employees on a planet have to be upskilled by 2025. So, who do you think should be doing this? Who should be taking leadership in solutions like this, Bob?
Well, Anant, this is, I think, one of the great challenges of our time, because as the workforce around the globe pivots into very new domains with new sets of skills, I really believe that it's going to be partnership between government, companies, and educators to create the programs that allow the people to pivot. And these programs, by their nature, are going to be massively online because of exactly what you said early on. The target audience is not the 18 to 22-year-olds. The target audience are people who are decades older than that, who are pivoting their skills to stay relevant in the workforce. We're very proud of our MBA program. Last I looked in February, it had an average age of 37. And with essentially all the people taking the program employed. So it's addressing a totally different need than the traditional MBA program. And that's exactly the place we should focus, targeted MicroMasters certificate programs, layered approaches in a whole bunch of fields as people start shifting the economy and the need for education. I believe that countries like the Kingdom are well positioned to strategically help make that move. It's one of the challenges in the United States, as Barbara alluded to, is we do not have a federated strategy around higher education. From our very beginning as a country, higher education was left to the individual states, and different states have very different approaches to it. A country like Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, another country I'm very familiar with, Singapore, can do this much more strategically than we can.
Well, that's very well said. Education is a human right. And so it's so critical, as you said, for the government, for education institutions, for employers to all work together. And as you said, the solution has to be massively online, given the ages of people that have to be upskilled. And frankly, even people who are in schools and colleges need to learn these skills and get the quality programs. And we'll talk more about that later. But in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, it's pretty remarkable where the Ministry of Education and the kingdom have taken a big step in that direction with the formation of the National E-Learning Center, and which has created FutureX, which is a national e-learning site. And so, in that sense, the kingdom is one step ahead of many nations where we are seeing this collaboration on massive online learning for reskilling and upskilling an entire nation. And so we're just so proud to be partners of NELC and FutureX in this amazing endeavor. With that, let me bring in Professor and President Pradeep Khosla. So my question for you is,
yes, sir.
My question for you is that UC San Diego has been a great partner of edX and launched a number of online programs. You do a lot of online work, and you launched a Micromasters in Data Science in 2017. And let me ask you this question. Why was launching a Micromasters important for you as UCSD? Now, we've heard why it's important for learners. It's important for them to upskill, reskill,
right,
get ready for college. But why was it important for you, President Khosla?
Thanks, Anand. First of all, thank you for this opportunity to be here and speak to our colleagues in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Even though it's too early in California, because of the significance of this opportunity, I said yes to be on this panel. UC San Diego, as you know, is one of the top 5 public institutions in the US. And it is the second most applied to institution in the US at 160,000 applications. So what we find is for a limited number of seats that we can offer for residential education, there's a lot more people we have to say no to. So if you think about the power of online, it allows us to extend our reach to a class of population that we are not able to bring onto campus, partly because of limitations in our infrastructure, partly because of other limitations of people to come to campus. Secondly, for us, the notion of quote unquote stackable credentials, not quite called that way, is not a new notion. Because if you look at the master plan of higher education in California, you can come with transfer credits from a community college into a Cal State over to UC. The quanta was fixed as 2 years of education rather than 25%, but nonetheless, you can see the beginnings of this understanding that one can take credentials from one school and come to another school and finish your credentials. And in that sense, it became important for us to understand, could we use online to really scale our delivery in ways that we had not done before? And us being a very faculty-dominated governance structure, there was some concern on the faculty's part about the effectiveness of online, the quality of online, the quality of learning, the quality of delivery. So doing a Micromasters where you are not offering a degree, but you were creating a credential was the best way to really break open that area for us and really change the culture and thinking of our institution and the faculty.
In fact, President Khosla, I'm sort of seeing a pattern here. President Brown talked about how the Kestrom School of Business at BU launched a Micromasters and then launched a full online MBA, where it's hard to climb Mount Everest. You have to first go to base camp. Once you go to base camp and acclimatize, then you can climb the rest of the way. Similarly, President Khosla, the Micromasters in Data Science at UC San Diego Hasn't it led to a fully online master's now? Tell us about that. Do you think you could have done that without taking the Basecamp approach?
Right. So we just got approval for a fully online master's in data sciences. And clearly, you cannot climb Mount Everest without going through Basecamp unless you get dropped by a helicopter from the top. And that does not work in academia because academia, as you know, the governance structure is a bottom-up structure. You got to start from the bottom and go all the way to the top and bring people along with you and make sure that they're all bought into and have internalized a vision, a strategy, and the execution for all of these offerings.
No, that's great to hear. In fact, as the slide shows, the Micromasters from UC San Diego is incredibly popular. It's one of the most popular programs on edX. And if you look at the skills needed for the future of work, this Micromasters involves so many of those skills. It has programming with Python. It has machine learning. It has data analysis and statistics. It's incredible how this program encapsulates so many of these career-focused skills. And in fact, many other innovations happened. So as an example, we collaborated with the IT university in Pakistan, where they wanted to create a data science program, but they did not have the know-how or the faculty. And so what they did was they have their campus students take the UC San Diego Micromasters. After they complete that, then their faculty teach the students several courses from their computer science program. And this is how they created a Lego-like master's in data science at the IT university in Pakistan. And you can see the pictures of both UC San Diego and IT University in Pakistan, where we're creating these international collaborations. And so this modular stackable credential is like a Lego block. Once you build a Lego block, it is amazing the kind of structures that will come out of it, and some that you will never dream about. And in fact, I want to talk with you, Pradeep, about kind of the next innovation that I know is very interesting to all of us, and particularly in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which is the Micromasters we talked about is a modular program with a credit pathway. President Khosla, I know that UC San Diego and edX are also working on high school credit pathways for college readiness. And the concept here is that you create a course, an online course, offer that to high schoolers. In fact, let me let you describe that, President Khosla. What is this concept of credit for courses for high schoolers? And maybe first describe what the program will look like.
Right. So I think in order to do this justice, one has to make several observations. One is the observation that has been made already, that the K through 12 system and the higher education system is highly distributed, and it's left to not just the states, but to local municipalities and local counties to really fund the high school system. The end result of this distributed nature, the positive side is there's diversity. The negative side is that the preparation, even though there are standardized tests at the other end, is not quite as uniform and as at the level that one would like. And given now that we have gotten rid of the standardized tests like SAT and ACT for admissions to make the system of admissions more egalitarian, we have to ask ourselves the question, how do I bring these students onto UC San Diego campus and make sure that they're college ready? They're ready to start taking college courses. And it is clear to me, and it's clear to most people, that AP courses, even though colleges might accept them as credentials, are not quite taught the way you would teach a course in college. So for example, you would not teach algebra in AP as you would teach algebra in college, or calculus, or physics one, or chemistry one. Secondly, there's only like 37 or 38 AP courses, and whereas we at UC San Diego offer 1,000 courses in every quarter. So my vision was to really start offering like 100 or so courses, especially to schools in California. So when students take these courses taught by UC San Diego faculty with exams that are UC San Diego quality exams on campus, and when students have done well in these courses, that becomes additional input into our admissions process, which of course has not been formally agreed to as yet. But for sure, it creates college preparation in ways that we have not seen before. And for us at UC San Diego, it allows on-time four-year graduation. And for the student, it allows graduation in a reasonable amount of time and also with fewer loans and maybe zero loans, right? So there are benefits all around with some initial investment, and that's what we are doing. So I'm really pushing very hard to create these credits across a whole variety of courses. So students come in college ready, have a feel for how college courses are taught, have a feel for UC San Diego, and we embrace them and nearly guarantee their success when they come to UC San Diego.
Fantastic. I think, President Khosla, this is an incredible service and incredibly innovative. And I remember my conversations with the Minister of Education in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and also with colleagues at FutureX and LELC, as to how important it is not just to get the right quality education in colleges and universities, but also to expose students in schools to early college courses so that we can get them to be college ready. Otherwise, you have this college readiness gap. And being able to expose students all over the world to college level courses from UC San Diego and other universities is so important to get them ready for college. My own example, growing up in Mangalore in India, we did not do calculus-based physics, in high school. Imagine, when I went to IIT, I actually failed in my first physics course. I was one of 2 students in all of IIT who failed that course. I'd never seen calculus-based physics. I was just not ready for college. And imagine if students in high schools are able to take these at least 1 or 2 college-level courses before they go to college. It gives them so much more confidence to be prepared for college. And so once they go to college, they don't then fall out of college. They can be prepared and ready for it. So thank you for this amazing service that you're doing. And in fact, this brings us to micro-bachelors. So micro-bachelors are kind of the next level. edX launched these in 2020. These are modular programs that learners can complete. And today we offer them from a number of universities. We offer university chemistry from Harvard, a micro-bachelors. We offer a micro-bachelors in intro to computer science from NYU and so on. So learners can complete these micro-bachelors. And for many learners, whether they're in high school or college, that may be enough and it improves their career. But for other learners, they would like to transfer the credit into a full bachelor's degree. And so we are super excited with the micro-bachelors programs as well, which is kind of the follow-on to the high schoolers getting credit and being more successful in college. So really looking forward to continuing this collaboration with UC San Diego over the years, President Khosla. Any further final thoughts on this, Pradeep?
No, I think what you have done and through to you first, and through edX first, and now through to you, has really fundamentally shaken, at least in my mind, a belief system that a lot of us in higher education held as the absolute truth, and we're more religious and dogmatic about it. And I think this is going to change. It's going to democratize education. Access to education is the power that's going to unleash creativity and economic development in the world, not just in the US, everywhere. And we need to democratize it. And that's what my aim is, and that's what you are doing too. So thank you. Absolutely.
I think democratization is key. And online learning is going to become a very key, incredibly key skill, where learning will become lifelong. I remember President Brown and I were chatting recently how once you graduate, or even if you don't graduate, online learning is going to be absolutely critical. And in fact, let me ask President Brown, what do you think, say 10 years from now, what do you think might be the ingredients of learning at a university, President Brown?
Well, I think trying to look into that crystal ball is something that gets hazier the more years out you look. But I do believe what we're going to see at all institutions, even ones of the more highly selected private institutions, is hybridization of education. What you're going to see is online and remote education, creating optionality for students, much like Pradeep just talked about. So we'll have students that hopefully most of our undergraduates will still have a residential college experience, but do they need 4 years of residential college experience? Would they be better off with 2 years or 3 years of residential college experience and 1 year of internship away from campus where they are still taking classes remotely? Do you give career options to high school students to bootstrap their way into the university the way that the Microbachelors are doing? I think all of these pathways will exist. And what universities have to do is be ready to be able to create them at the quality of the institution's normal programs and be ready for this future.
Oh, that's an incredible, we touched on that in our Q&A session as well, the Presidents Brown and Kosler. It's an incredible vision. Imagine the future university, which is hybrid, where instead of 4 years on campus, maybe students spend only 2 years on campus. And while students are in high school, they complete online courses or microbachelors programs while in high school. And by the time they come to college, they already have 1 year of credit, spend 2 years on campus, and then go into the workforce. And because they've taken microbachelors and micromasters, they're ready for the job ready. They go and work, and then they continue the education with modular programs throughout life. It's an incredible vision.
No, one thing I would say, Anant, is that if you think of Boston University today, 45% of our undergraduates spend at least one semester off campus already.
That's
and
right.
They're doing that traditionally through programs that we offer around the world and in the United States, in which we teach residentially for them.
That's
right?
a good, so what you're saying is that
teaching residentially is an umbilical cord that we can break. What online education does is break that umbilical cord and allow you to do much more innovative things than we can do while teaching them remote in a residential setting elsewhere.
I think that's a really good point. Online learning enables you to break that umbilical cord and you can continue teaching them even as they do internships. So Provost Peter Moore, you're doing some incredibly innovative work at SMU, Southern Methodist University. And so far we've talked about microbachelors and micromasters. Let's talk about boot camps. Boot camps are, I know you do several boot camps with the 2U. Boot camps are a program that learners spend 6 to 9 months in. It's very career focused. Boot camps are created by working with companies and finding out what the key in-demand skills are to launch careers in coding, data science, cyber, fintech, product management, project management, and so on. Creating these highly hands-on, project-oriented programs with the high touch. And the boot camps also involve the career coaching, career engagement networks, hundreds of companies that offer interviews to learners through webinars and job fairs and so on. So Peter, SMU offers several boot camps in partnership with 2U edX. Let's talk about boot camps in and of itself. Why do you think boot camps are important in this new economy, this new world of ours? Why are boot camps taking a really critical role in the face of future of work? So help me understand that, Provost Moore.
Yeah, again, let me also, like the other panelists, thank everybody for allowing me to participate in this program today. A lot of what I'm going to say has already been said by a number of the other panelists, so I'd like to build on the comments that they have already made. But in Dallas, at least, and I'm sure this is true in Boston and San Diego, employers want students, mostly students with a bachelor's degree, to be upskilled. And they see these non-credit bearing boot camps as a way for those students to actually get the additional coding information that they need to be able to come in and do things that they weren't able to do before. I think that the students themselves, the employees, also are taking advantage of these boot camps because they're relatively short, relatively inexpensive, and allow those students, these employees, to dip their toe in the water on data science, for example, which is one of the ones that we offer, and kind of explore what that looks like before they would step into a program that was credit bearing like a master's.
That's fantastic, Peter. It's very clear that we certainly hear from a lot of employers that when students complete a bachelor's degree, there's still often a skills gap. Mm-hmm. And not to mention, 30% of the students who complete the boot camps with the 2U and edX actually don't have a bachelor's degree at all. And what we are seeing is that the median income of boot camp completers, even those who don't have a bachelor's degree, are coming out and earning the same as bachelor's degree learners. So these career skills are just so important. And employers are looking to overcome the skills gap with these skills-focused boot camps. So tell us about how you created a program where boot camps count for credit at SMU. So tell us about the structure of that program, Peter.
Yeah, so we kind of started in the opposite direction that most everybody else has talked about. We actually started with the Master of Science and Data Science online. So we kind of started Mount Everest and went backward. But that program has been around since 2014. And we've also then more recently started these boot camps. And we really wanted students to know that we value, even though these are not credit bearing, we value what students are getting out of the boot camps. And so to do that, and we're not the first in this by any means, many universities are already doing this, created a pathway for credit for prior learning. And in particular, students can earn up to 6 credits based on their work in the boot camp. They put together a portfolio of their materials from the boot camp, which is then reviewed by the folks, the faculty members who are in the online MSDS program, the Master of Science and Data Science program, and they can earn 0, 3, or 6 credits toward that 30 credits. So there's a whole bunch of advantages for that financially for the student, in terms of time for the student. They really benefit from that. And if employers also are helping pay for some of this, there are real benefits to them participating as well. So it's an advantage to us, it's an advantage to students, and it's an advantage to employers. And I think that's a message that has been clear from the panelists on the Micromasters as well.
So Peter, there's a lot of interest in many universities that are on this panel, that are listening to the panel. You are the leader at Southern Methodist University that's in charge of accrediting programs, and you are the person. You know how it is done. You work with faculty and leadership and others to get it done. How did you get it done? Like, what did it take to take a bootcamp program and get it allocated for credit into a master's degree? What advice would you give someone who wants to try to do this?
Yeah, so as one of the other panelists has noted, these kinds of changes, these innovative changes, are bottom up. And so if faculty don't buy into these changes, you're not going to be able to implement them. So at SMU, we have a series of layers for curricular changes. And my layer is at the top. We review these proposals. 7 faculty members are voting members of this Educational Programs Committee. And all the proposals have to come to this committee before they get approved by our provost, and in some cases by the board, and in some cases by our accrediting body, which is SAC-COC. So when we decided we were going to pursue this, we decided to pursue this in a very narrow way, because this was our first effort in credit for prior learning. And like panelists have mentioned, there have been some skepticism on these kinds of innovative programs. Thankfully, we're not the first ones to do this. And so we drew heavily, actually, in this case, on what Tulane University had already done. And we modeled our approach for that just for this one boot camp, the Trilogy boot camp through 2U, which we also host. And that was the pathway that we chose because it was narrow and because it was into the Master of Science in Data Science program. I think we were able to overcome the kind of general skepticism that faculty had. I think if this program is successful, we will broaden it to allow other boot camps that we have to fill into the Master of Science in Data Science. And I expect we won't stop with just a Master of Science in Data Science. Now that we've kind of done this, and the first students that will be doing this are actually going to be starting in the fall. We've already accepted some students from the boot camp into the program. It's happened very quickly, and we'll get a chance to see how these students do and be able to assess that, and then be able to go back and actually expand this, because I think this is going to be a pathway that many more students are going to want to choose.
Absolutely, Peter. It's very important. Now, how are companies reacting to boot camps and such modular programs? So, speak to me about one, how companies are reacting to the boot camp as a product in and of it, educational product in and of itself. And second, how are companies reacting to, is the credit pathway important for companies as well? And talk about how you're doing this in summer and working with companies, and why do they care?
Yeah, so thank you. We actually have spent the last year working on a joint program with AT&T, which is a significant employer in Dallas and has a significant data science operation in Dallas. They understand that the pipeline to data scientists is there are not nearly as many data scientists getting credentials as they need. And so they wanted to get into the pipeline as early as possible to get those students in. So we worked with them over this past year to create a new kind of bootcamp internship program where students this summer will actually, these are undergraduates, advanced undergraduates, will actually do both some training in data science, but actually then also have half of the time spent in a paid internship with AT&T. So they will get both the education in terms of the coursework kinds of things that undergraduates need, and then they're going to get the actual experience with AT&T. I think what AT&T is hoping out of this is that these students then, once they've completed their degree, will actually become employees of AT&T and go on and get a master's, because that's the real goal, at least for AT&T. They really want students with a master's degree in data science. But this is a way to get at those students at a much earlier stage than they've been able to do before. So we are really excited about this and expect that, again, when this is launched, we'll be able to expand these kinds of programs to other companies in the area that are interested in a similar kind of thing.
Oh, this is remarkable, Peter. And one common theme that I've seen from all the panelists is the concept of a stepping stone, where a modular program like a microbachelors in high school becomes a stepping stone to college. And a boot camp for people who just a high school diploma, for example, a boot camp can be a stepping stone to a job. A micromasters or a boot camp when in college can become a stepping stone to job readiness and employer readiness, and to get a fulfilling job and a career. So it's amazing how all of you are innovating in this incredible space. And I'm so grateful that that all of you have joined us. We can now move into a Q&A from the audience. It actually turns out that I've cheated a little bit. I've already been asking you some of the questions that I heard from the audience. So for example, one of the audience questions that President Brown already answered was, what does the future university in 10 years look like? How is learning going to become blended? So we already answered that question. And let me take the next question, which is, we have a lot of universities, leadership and faculty and instructors online on the panel here. What advice would you have? How do we integrate MOOCs into mainstream education? So there's online learning. It's available on FutureX as a platform, for example. If I'm a university, how do I integrate that into mainstream education? What are ways to do that? So panelists, who wants to take this question? You know what? I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So hopefully what is that? How does it sound? I'll stop sharing my screen.
So Anand, while you're doing it, let me just take a crack at this. I think the simplest way to do this is for individuals to really take a MOOC course and for them to be delivered a certificate by whatever company or university is offering the MOOC course, and them to make it part of their online credentialing system. I think this whole notion that a third party has to credential you all the time is going to be challenged at some point or the other. But the third party in the past has been a university. It's going to be challenged, and it's already being challenged because places like Google and IBM are credentialing you right now. So I can imagine that people also self-credential and in the part of demonstrating their skill would be the interview process. So I'm more egalitarian. I'm more democratic about this. I don't believe in third parties always being the supervisors of your credentials.
I think that makes sense, Peter, right? Where ultimately your employer through interviews will be seeing if you learned something or not, and having a third party sort of validate a credential, I agree, is may not have a huge amount of meaning. So with MOOCs, so your approach would then be for a university to just go ahead and offer a MOOC or a microbachelors or a micromasters or a boot camp to their learners within the university, and simply give them, say, go take it, earn the certificate, we'll give you credit for it. That is simple. Any other approaches to integrate?
No, may not be credit. We'll give you a certificate. It doesn't mean it is a credit-bearing course towards a degree, because in the US, universities' financials and credits are tightly coupled. People may not want to admit that, but that actually is a fact of life. So one has to be careful about that.
I think certainly in the US, in the United States, it's a real challenge because it's very decentralized. Students pay for education. But, as we chatted, in countries that understand and appreciate education at a national level, whether it's the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia or India or pretty much every other country except the United States, the Ministry of Education, the government system, is able to say that certain things can confer credit. And so we have so many universities all over the world that have decided to offer MOOCs to their students, and the students get not only the certificate, but they get credit on campus for that as well. Are there any other approaches, panelists, for integrating MOOCs into campus learning?
Well, at MIT, we're trying to flip as many classrooms as possible and displacing classroom. Look, the COVID has confiscated our ability to be together, and we need to sort of when we get that time back, it'll be a tragedy if we use it all for lectures, which are one way, not engaged. So the flipped classroom, the blended approach to learning has to be the future. It also, in my view, firms up the business model of universities, because that's when the apprenticeship occurs. So if you do that, then the online material has to be credentialed in some way. Maybe there'll be a new approach where you have the online credential, the in-person credential, so that the two together make up the whole, like two quantum particles. But I do think that, and then the online credential is valuable to people who don't have access to the in-person. So this sort of rethinking has to occur. It hasn't happened yet, but without it happening, I think universities will be victims rather than agents of their own change, because the demand from the outside world is inexorable. It's unstoppable.
I love that. So the second approach is, so first approach that Pradeep talked about was a university simply allows a learner to take a MOOC course or a microbachelors or a boot camp and gives credit for it. The second approach that you talked about, Sanjay, is flipped classroom or blended learning, where a learner takes a MOOC course, but a faculty member at the university incorporates that material into their own class or into their own teaching. And in fact, I know MIT does this because my own circuits course has been offered both in a blended manner at MIT for campus students. It is also, in 2016 and 2017, MIT also did an experiment where learners took a fully online course for credit on campus. Many nations are going one step further. So in India, for instance, the Ministry of Education along with the UGC, which is one of the bodies overseeing universities, has issued a ruling that says that universities can accept up to 20% of the credit from external online sources. So in nations where the ministry governs universities, it is fairly straightforward to have some portion of credit directly come from online learning. Let me ask the next question. As MOOCs are used in, as online learning and MOOCs are used in universities, particularly from other places, what opportunities do you think this gives students at the university? In other words, what do the students at the university get that is unique and different? And I want you to think about upskilling. I want to think about having a credit-bearing certificate. I want you to think about interdisciplinary stuff. So talk to me and our audience about what is the benefit for the student in doing this. Who wants to take that?
I'll try to pass at it. I think one advantage for the student is, potentially at least, that they get to interact with students who are different from the students at the institution that they're attending. So, and the institutions tend to have, in some cases, a fairly specific academic culture. So the chance to engage at some level in another academic culture, I think, can be very helpful. Another thing I'd like to point out, which isn't directly related to this, but in the US, there's considerable pressure for highly selective institutions to admit more students. And I think when people think about that, they think of the residential student body. And I doubt that MIT, I'll use MIT as an example, is not going to build a campus that's 3 times as big as the one that you have now. So admitting more students to be there physically is one thing, but through Micromasters, Bachelor's degree, for other opportunities for students to experience an MIT education, I think is a real advantage here that we should take into account.
That's fantastic. Does one of the panelists want to speak to the ability? So let's say I'm a university in various parts of the world where we may not have the latest cutting edge interdisciplinary programs. What would I, as a university leader, be able to offer my students in terms of interdisciplinary learning if I were able to use some of these MOOCs from the outside world? Any thoughts on that, folks?
I mean, look, if you want to be aggressive about this, you can think about creating what I think of as a logical university, which would be the curator of these courses and offering an experience without ever having their own faculty or their own defined culture, right? I can imagine they become like a body, and much like, for example, 2U would do that, where you don't offer your own degrees, but you curate courses. And then there might be a third party that's willing to accept the credentials and say, you know what, this combination is degree X or degree Y, and I'm going to certify you. And if that third party is credible, this could catch on very fast.
Well, 2U would never do that. I mean, we work with universities and universities
no, I know, but
provide the degree. But you're right. Courses. But you're right. We actually work with many universities. We work with Thomas Edison State University that provides a universal pathway for all the microbachelors. Mm-hmm. So students can take microbachelors from a number of universities, and as they do that, they accumulate credit on the university transcript.
So the question for me is, for somebody like Barbara, would you accredit an organization that curates rather than creates?
So Barbara, you want to talk about Charter Oak?
I was just going to say Charter Oak College started decades ago, so well before online learning. And the idea was to work with students in Connecticut, a fairly small geographic state, who would come to them. There were faculty members from the other accredited institutions in Connecticut who advised students, because at the time, again, there was no online learning, go to Trinity College and take this, go to UConn and take that course, and put together a package of courses that Charter Oak grants the degree for. They do some teaching now of their own courses, but they started with just using other people's courses and granting degrees.
So who created Charter Oak?
That's a great question. I'm not sure I know the answer, but it's a public institution. So it was authorized at some level by the legislature, no doubt.
So what you're saying is that something highly innovative. I certainly think that Charter Oak and Thomas Edison State are incredibly innovative and valuable institutions. So, for that matter, a government could create a body, could create an institution, could create a new kind of university that would simply curate content. And once that content is curated and quality controlled, that institution could issue credit, and very little or zero teaching could happen at that institution. Some teaching could happen over time, like at Charter Oak, but initially it could just curate the courses and it could do it. And so the Charter Oak is an institution in the US that does that. And I know that there are many other institutions. University of London, for example, is another institution that curates content, and we are working with them. And so we create courses from London School of Economics and so on. And the University of London is the body that curates the courses and gives the ultimate degree. So this happens all over the world. So let me ask the next question. And I'm going to direct this question to Peter. Peter, are these programs, like the bootcamp programs that you have, are these programs rigorous enough to prepare a learner for a job in high demand fields? Will it be transformative in building for a nation, for example? If a nation were to create and fund boot camps for an entire population, would they be transformative in building an economy of skilled workers? What do you think, Peter? The shorter term question and the longer term question.
Yeah, I would say absolutely. The employers that we have in Dallas certainly value these because, as you noted, students that complete boot camps actually get a significant boost in income as a result. So I do think employers in Dallas, at least, and I think that's probably nationwide, do see a real value in these boot camps. I'll just note that the effort that we made over this last year working with AT&T was a real partnership in creating the kind of boot camp experience. We worked closely with them in designing this, so it really is tailored to the kinds of things that employees at AT&T are going to need. They use Microsoft Azure as opposed to AWS, so we really targeted and tailored the program for that. So there were a whole set of things we really worked with AT&T, and I think companies are really going to be interested in doing exactly that, and we'll see the value of it.
And Peter, and the same thing is happening with the Micromasters and Microbachelors as well, where whether it's boot camps or Micromasters, any number of companies are now guaranteeing interviews. So for example, Tech Mahindra in India will guarantee anybody from India a guaranteed interview if they complete a Micromasters in data science from UC San Diego, for example, or the Micromasters in supply chain management from MIT. And so we are seeing that happen where employers are looking to get skilled workers, and it's just an incredible system. Here's another comment and a question, and this is from KAU. It's from Ghassan Musa. The automation labs at KAU in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia got accreditation to teach mechatronics from Siemens. And so looks like this is already happening, where offering a course from a different institution within the kingdom. Can we cooperate to teach Micromasters in using our platform? This would give KAU a window to international students while using its wonderful online facilities. So maybe I'll direct this question to Sanjay, perhaps, as to, maybe you can talk to the adoption of Micromasters within universities to their students and other students.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Micromasters has become so fundamental to us that we're designing whole master's programs with the Micromasters in mind. In other words, it was one thing for us to retrofit an existing Micromasters with a on-ramp with a Micromasters on-ramp, which is how we first started, which is how, when you and I and Barbara had that pivotal conversation. Now we're talking about, when we talk about a new Micromasters that's just been approved actually in artificial intelligence, it is built around, the Masters itself is built around the Micromasters. There will be no first half. It will only be a second half, and the first half will be online and it'll be Micromasters, right? And the reason is, if you take artificial intelligence and computer science, it is such a competitive field that the distillation column that this gives us is irreplaceable. So why would you go another route? Why would you admit students based on recommendations from people you're unlikely to ever meet, when you can actually have them go through the Micromasters and prove to you that they're committed and they have the knowledge and so on. So to me, for us, this is a sort of a route change. And it's also irreversible for that reason, Anant.
Well, this is fantastic, Sanjay. The lot of questions from the audience about, certainly take this one, is a lot of interest from academics from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on wanting to adopt these programs at the universities. And one common question they all ask, there's actually two questions. One question is, which entity gives accreditation to the modular stackable programs? But let me take the answer to that. So generally, if a university adopts a Micromasters or a MOOC or a boot camp for their students, the university is able to give credit because university, it's within the purview of the university can give credit to their students. And if you think you're not sure about it, I would ask you to talk to the innovators at the National E-Learning Center. I would ask you to talk to your Ministry of Education and confirm that you are able to do that. It's the university that gives the credit. Now, if a student gets admitted into MIT, then MIT will give them the credit for the Micromasters. And so it depends where the student is. And so a university can certainly do it. Now, I know we're at the top of the hour. It's at 10 a.m. right now. And so let me ask the moderators, should we pause right now? And shall I pass it back? Shall I pass it back to you? Maybe you're on mute if you are talking.
Yes.
Terrific, Zaid. Let me pass it on back to you since we're at the top of the hour. I want to be make sure we don't run over. We've run over by 2 minutes, but let me pass it on back to you, Zaid. So thank you. Let me end by thanking all of the panelists. You all have been absolutely fantastic and leaders. And I want to recognize all of you advise and work with governments. And Barbara, I know you've worked with 25 ministries of education and helping set up accreditation processes and transfer processes. You understand how charter oak types of colleges work. So you all have been just fantastic. And I hope that the pearls of wisdom that have come out in this panel will help people in the region. So thank you all again for joining.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
On behalf of the National E-Learning Center, we thank our distinguished moderator, Dr. Anant Agarwal, founder of edX, professor at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Chief Open Education Officer at 2U, for leading this productive and interesting webinar on building credit pathways through stackable learning. We would also like to thank the distinguished speakers, Dr. Robert Brown, Dr. Pradeep Khosla, Dr. Barbara Brittingham, Dr. Sanjay Sharma, and Dr. Peter Moore for their valuable input, and the participants for attending this webinar. Once again, I'm Zaid Rgeb. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.